We're going to start with the flag salute. Right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good work, everyone. All right, report out from closed session. The meeting was called to order at 5:08 p.m. Item 3.1, conference with labor negotiators, no action. Item 3.2, conference with labor negotiators, CSCA, no action. Item 3.3, conference with real property negotiators, no action. 3.4, conference with legal counsel, no action. Item 3.5, public employment matters. On a 5-0 vote with motion from Blau, seconded by Smolin, voted to accept the recommendation. Item 3.6, public employment matters, no action. Item 3.7, public employee performance evaluation, no action. On a motion by Smolin, seconded by Bagdasarian, the meeting was adjourned at 6:31 p.m. Moving on to the approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
President Gibran, just before you go, item 4.2 under student support in the consent calendar, we're going to poll that item and put it on next month. The alignment of first and second reads with a new policy versus the old policy deletion are 1 month off. So we're going to poll 4.2 under student support services on the consent calendar to make sure that the new policy aligns with the deletion of the second.
Okay.
So that one will be pulled from the consent calendar and not voted on.
All right, we need a new motion with that stipulation.
Move
Move that stipulation.
Okay, you can keep the same motion in second. Trustee Lavelle,
Aye.
Trustee Bagdasarian,
Aye.
Trustee Smolin,
Aye.
Clerk of the Board Blau,
Aye.
President Gibran.
Aye. Approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Smolin and Blau.
Trustee Lavelle,
Aye.
Trustee Bagdasarian,
Aye.
Trustee Smolin,
Aye.
Clerk of the Board Blau,
Aye.
and President Gibran.
Aye. Moving on to communications. Do we have any public comments?
Yeah, we do have one public comment, and we appreciate that the community member submitted these in writing and allowed me to read them because of our technology issues. So I will read it as it was sent to us. And this is a public comment from Mr. John Santangelo. Appreciate that more schools are opening, but it's just not good enough for the working parents of Simi. Public school closures haven't been acceptable since August, when all schools should have opened. No problems with private schools, any problems with children in all states that have been open since August. Any major concerns with the thousands of schools that have been open worldwide? No. We, working parents who either can't afford private schools or planning a move to a free state, are so very disappointed in your leadership. Sorry, just a fact, and it can't be the first time you've heard or read it. A few of the bullet points from your February meeting are provide community leadership, sincere desire to serve our community and all students, etc. You have had a year to get this right. Following the bad advice of Fauci, Birx, Newsom, County Health Director, etc., it's not leading and it's not helping our community. No matter your politics, even the CDC, NIH, and even Fauci himself stated months ago that children should be in school. Again, we realize schools are slowly opening, but there is a world of difference between 2 hours of in-person instruction and full days instruction. Please tell us that schools may be 2 hours for the first few weeks, but then soon they'll be opening normally. Please tell us that our children don't need to wear face diapers for absolutely no reason, that they won't be separated by plastic partitions, that our children can actually play together and be kids. Please tell us, working parents, that there will still be summer school options. I read that Simi School District has lost over 500 students this past year. If this neglect continues, you will lose hundreds, if not thousands of more. You either don't realize that or you don't care. People have lost so much respect for boards of education, teachers' unions, and teachers this past year. Hope it was all worth it to you. Please open normally ASAP. We realize that you're all probably nice people and trying your best, but that's not good enough. Thousands of like-minded parents are waiting to vote each of you out. If you can't handle the responsibility of leading a community, please resign. And that is the end of the public comments, President Gibran.
No further public comments. All right. Are there any presentations?
Not tonight,
Employee organization comments
not tonight.
and superintendent communication?
Yes, thank you, President Gibran. I'll be brief. I just want to say that yesterday was a very exciting day to be on our middle school and high school campuses, seeing students back for the first time since last March. And I want to thank all of our teachers in our pilot programs this week and all of our staff at all of our schools, frankly, elementary included, since you've been back for some time. But we really are excited about next Tuesday and the opportunity for our middle school and high school students to be back on campus. You know, the joy we saw in the elementary students and the teachers the first day they were back, we know is going to be replicated on Tuesday. And we look forward to seeing students back. And we also got good news today that the county has regressed officially tomorrow, or at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow, to the red tier, which allows us even more opportunity to do things on our campuses that in the purple tier we are not allowed to do, as well as a lot in the business sector that will help our communities feel a little bit a sense of normalcy too. And the other aspect of returning to the red tier is that more sports are now allowed to happen, and some of the testing requirements that were accompanying some of these sports returning go away in the red tier. So that has made that process a bit easier for our high schools that are trying to do athletics as well right now. So again, I just want to thank everybody for all of their hard work to make this happen. As everybody knows, we have been waiting for one of two criteria to be in place so that our middle schools and high schools could come back. The red tier happened first, and we're excited to be doing that. And I personally just want to thank our board for their leadership through this really difficult time. And I know that a lot of demand is placed on you to do what a lot of different voices are asking you to do, and those voices are varied and they're come from varied opinions. But I think that that you've done a great job maneuvering all the minutia of the state criteria that constantly is changing, and doing the best you can do with the limitations that are placed on public agencies. So I want to thank you for your leadership and your support of our staff as we open up our schools, and hopefully we'll have a nice 9 or 10 weeks left of the year. And just to our community, want to remind everybody that the schools are opening, and we have to keep them safe in order to keep them open, because there are criteria on how classrooms and schools have to close if we have outbreaks of COVID-19 on their campuses, and we certainly don't want to do that. So for all of our secondary families who are excited to send their kids back next week, please review all of the safety guidelines that were sent home or will be sent home to your families before coming to school on Tuesday, because we certainly do not want to start having to close classrooms once we finally had the opportunity to get students back. So we're really excited. And again, what a team effort from so many people in our district to make this happen. So many hardworking people. And I want to just thank the 70 secondary teachers that volunteered this week to pilot on our campuses so that we can practice our safety protocols and kind of get used to how the flow is going to happen at schools. And it's going to be a really exciting day next Tuesday, and we're excited to see all of them on campus. And then finally, our employees are receiving their second dose vaccinations this weekend. And Monday will be a virtual learning day for all students in the district, so that any potential side effects that any of the teachers may have, they can still run their classrooms virtually because, as all of you know, we don't have the capacity in the COVID environment to have a large number of substitute teachers on campus. So just as a reminder that classes will begin on Tuesday in person on the secondary campuses, and everyone in the district, including elementary, will be virtual on Monday, the 22nd. And with that, I conclude my comments. Thank you, President Gibran.
All right, thank you, Dr. Polinsky. Moving on to board communication in this order: Blau, Bagdasarian, Smolin, LaBelle, and Gibran.
Thank you, President Gibran. I just have a few items. One is I just wanted to thank staff as well and add my voice to Dr. Poplinsky about secondary's opening. I know we've worked really hard these last few months to get these things to get here. So I hope that obviously everybody will stay safe. We have really strong guidelines. Sean, I think you've done an admirable job every day in reporting all the items and so forth. So I just wanted to thank you and everybody on the team for coming together to make sure our elementary and our secondary is on the right path. So thank you all for that. Great to see our staff being vaccinated. I think that was just a feather in all of our caps and added so much comfort, I think, to many teachers going back into the classroom. And looking forward to that being over, getting past that part. And then just a couple last things. I wanted to thank Mrs. Calloway at Big Spring. She had me come and read at Big Spring. So I read a Cat in a Hat, I think a few days ago. And then also Mrs. Sport, Catherine Elementary, she had me come and read as well. So it was all online, of course. That was the first time I've had to do that, but I did read to one class that was in class and then virtual. So it was interesting to see how different both experiences were from Zoom. And you can kind of get a sense of, I think, some of the challenges that are not being talked about that many of our educators are going through on a daily basis, to see the technology versus actually the prep time that they're putting in on a daily basis. So I definitely wanted to thank our staff and highlight the many challenges that people aren't talking about often in our district. So that concludes my remarks. And again, I think we're on a right path. It's just, we got to stay on the right path. So we'll get there, and we just keep moving forward. And I appreciate everybody's hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Bagdasarian.
Thank you. Actually, Trustee Blau pretty much said everything I was going to say, so I'm just going to say ditto, except for the reading part, which I'm happy to have done as well. If there's any takers out there, I would just, add my thanks to his, and also just thank you to the parents for being patient. And I know this, as a parent myself, this is a difficult time, and we're all going through everything together. And I would also like to thank all the teachers out there, especially the teachers of my own two children who have been especially patient. So thank you.
Trustee Smolin.
There we go. I think we've all had our challenges this last year. I certainly have had my own personal ones, but the reward came to me today as I went and visited all the teachers that were on the campus at Simi Valley High School. So I just wanted to thank Mr. Bradshaw, Mr. Kelly, Mr. Oliveira, Mr. Arison, Mankey, Mr. Mewen, the long-term sub, Mr. Lynn, as well as Mr. Burlingham, Ms. Fidel, Ms. Peterson, Ms. Lake, for allowing me to visit their classrooms briefly and see their students. The chatter in a classroom, we were just recently, just briefly, talking about how our board doesn't get to have that interaction in person and how important it is to feel connected. And so to see the students connecting and chattering, I know that on Zoom, they're very quiet with each other and there's no whispering or passing text or whatever, because I don't know exactly how, but to see that starting to come back onto our secondary campuses was very exciting today. I also saw the counseling staff and the admin at the school, and I look forward in the next few weeks to be able to visit the other sites and welcome our secondary students back to school. I also read for Mrs. Spore's class, which is a tradition since my children went there, and that actually was a little bit more interactive than I had expected. And that was a fun time as well. I'm very excited about all the work that we've done and the ability to get anyone who wanted to be on our campuses. It's not about everyone has to go back or everyone has to stay home. It's being able to give everyone a choice to do whatever it is that they are comfortable with. And I'm proud of all of us and all of them for making the choice for all of our students and the families possible.
Thank you. Trustee LaBelle?
Yeah, it's been a very, very difficult year for everyone. I'd like to applaud the staff, the students, everyone for the work they've done over this 1 year. Vaccines, tremendous job by the district staff. I know Dr. Poblinski will try to share that, the ability to get it done, but it was his spiriting it that made it happen. And also good luck to all the students and the staff, and have a great remainder of the year.
All right, thank you. Wanted to welcome our secondary students back to campus, starting with some smaller cohorts this week, and then moving into instruction next week. That's a tremendous milestone. It's hard to believe it's been a year since we've been dealing with this collectively, but want to also echo how proud and appreciative I am of the staff, the teachers, the parents that have leaned in, and our students on what they've put forward and the effort to move forward. And there's been a tremendous amount of innovation that I've seen to keep kids connected in this environment. I've experienced it in my own household. I just want to say thank you to the PTAs, to the teachers, to everybody that's trying to keep all this connectedness together. We're very excited to have our secondary students back on campus in the near term here, and was able to be at the vaccination clinic that we had that offered anybody that wanted that. What an incredible logistical feat that everyone pulled off here to have that extra layer of safety and security offered. It seemed like there was a lot of smiling eyes and maybe a tear here or there as we move forward. And also just want to appreciate the elementary teachers that have been on campus with students for some time now, and what that all brings to their students and the families. I want to thank all of our teachers and staff again, and looking forward to the next step and going through this process together. And I think there's no playbook, but I know that there is a plan that's been in place that we're going to execute together. And there's been a lot of smart people putting their heads together to figure out how we do this under the circumstances. And Simi Valley Unified, I think we're doing a great job. And in comparison, maybe some of our neighbors, it's not as great, but looking forward to this new chapter. So moving on there, we're going to move to the consent calendar. As I already heard, we're going to pull item 4.2.
Yeah, that's the deletion of a policy, but we haven't approved the second read of the new policy, so we don't want to delete it quite yet.
Okay. And are there any items that want to be pulled for individual discussion?
just need a motion for the consent calendar.
The only one I had a question about was, I think there was some traffic on it, but related to the Garden Grove NPR and just how that works as far as compensable delays and how our team looked at those and how that all ended up. I know we're under very difficult conditions, whatnot, but was that more related to extensions and change orders and things of that nature, Mr. Toto?
I did send out an email at the very end, and it was related to some DSA issues, change orders. One of the things, though, that Tony Joseph did send to me this morning was that the original contract that was put out was related to a modular building that was supposed to be delivered, and then it changed into a stick built. And at that point in time, they didn't change the timeline for the building of the NPR. And so they did have to recognize in conversations that the contract length was short, and that was part of the delays. But yes, COVID did attribute to it. Ability to get materials attributed to part of the delays. Change orders that involved the DSA involved a few of the delays. So there are multiple factors that did go into that.
Okay, I think the end result on that campus speaks for itself. Just thank one of our other trustees for bringing that to our attention and talking through that and having the information there, because it feels like we're vetting those dollars in a reasonable amount and putting forward our due diligence. So appreciate that, Mr. Toto. All right. With that, do we have a motion for the consent calendar?
Move
So
approval.
moved.
Second.
Blau Bagdasarian is what I had there, President Gibran. I think Trustee LaBelle was trying to get into, but I'll record it as Blau
I'll call
Bagdasarian.
it Blau Bagdasarian.
Okay.
Sorry.
Trustee LaBelle,
Aye.
Trustee Bagdasarian,
Aye.
Trustee Smolin,
Aye.
Clerk of the Board Blau,
Aye.
President Gibran.
Aye. Moving to item G, action calendar, board administration, none, personnel services, none, educational services, item 3.1, resolution number 25/2021, resolution in support of civic engagement.
Yeah, President Gibran, we're really excited about this. I see that Mr. Downey is on the call. I want to thank him for his efforts to lead this, but if I could have Mrs. Snodgrass just explain without having to read the whereases, the tenets of the basis for the resolution.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I just want to reiterate, as Dr. Poplinski stated, Mr. Downey is on the line, and had some great conversations with him and some other educators about increasing our civic engagement and our civic awareness. As a result, we have written the resolution, and our intent is to ensure that our students are college and career ready and prepared for civic engagement and civic life. We have based our resolution on the National Council for the Social Studies Framework, which has identified 6 proven practices for civic learning. And in addition to these practices, we really are dedicated to ensuring that our students are participating and they're active citizens regardless of their age, encouraging voter registration and participation. We know that nationally, our youth participation in civic engagement is historically low. And we have a strong commitment here in Simi Valley Unified, not only with our partnership with the Ronald Reagan Library, but with our Citizen Scholars Institute and our pathways that are leading from elementary campuses to our middle schools onto our high schools. So essentially, this is just a redetermination for our practices and policies in civic engagement.
Thank you, Jamie. And there was a question about if someone on the call wanted to speak. But like our normal meetings, that is done during our public comments, and same as Zoom, we don't take comments from the audience at this time, sorry. But I also want to just say that this is going to lead nicely into the coordinator position that the board will be, we're collecting applicants as we speak right now. Part of the responsibility of that new coordinator position will be to work within our civics programs and to help build our civics programs and our partnerships with the Medal of Honor Foundation and our character education program. So thank you.
All right. Student support services.
Oh, that's
We're
an
looking
action.
for
That's an action item. Yeah.
an action.
Move approval.
I'll
Second.
Had Blau Smolin. Trustee LaBelle,
Aye.
Trustee Bagdasarian,
Aye.
Trustee Smolin,
Aye.
Clerk of the Board Blau,
Aye.
and President Gibran.
Aye. Student support services, none. Business and facilities, item 5.1, approval, filing, and positive certification, financial status of the district, second interim report.
Mr. Toto, you're on.
I am on, and you all should be seeing the second interim report presentation. So we will move through it, and there are always a few slides that we deal with that are simply reminders. One is this is the second interim. We are approving it today, although it is due to the county on March 15th, but they give us a 1 day as long as we have it submitted to align with our board meetings. From here on out, as will be part of the presentation, we're really looking at what is ahead, the governor's budget to be released, and at the same time, we'll be looking at the LCAP, having a public hearing as well as a presentation on June 15th. And then from there is a public hearing on the 2021-2022 budget, of which there is no presentation. And on the 29th, we will have the board adopt the 2021-2022 budget and LCAP, and we will do the presentation on the budget at that point in time. As part of the budget development cycle, just a reminder, this reflects all of our budget through January 31st, and then asking for all of our departments to realign their budgets as they foresee them into the end of the year. And it really is taking a snapshot as to where we are currently and how we project finishing up the year. So tonight we'll take a look at any changes or revenue, expenditures, and have discussions around any changes we see. We'll look at our fund balance and what comprises that fund balance. We'll look at cash flow, our multi-year projections, which is what we need to show to the County Office of Education to get our appropriate certification or a positive certification. Have a brief discussion around future considerations, looking to the future, and then announce or discuss what criteria we meet for our certification. So as just looking at our revenue, we don't see any major changes in our revenue between first and second interim. As can be noted, we did see a significant increase in federal.
I can only see Bob.
As well as some state revenue into the first interim from our adopted budget. A large part of that are COVID funds. In the presentation, we will discuss that also. When we look at our expenditures, this is the time of the year that we ask everybody to begin trimming their budgets. If they have expenditures that they don't need to be spending, to look at anything that they didn't project as needing and making sure we have in the budget. As a whole, you'll see that our overall expenditures do go down, and we will take a look at what might have gone up and what went down to contribute that as we look at our next slides. So what are our major changes? We really don't have any major revenue changes. We do have an increase in the amount that we're projected to get for our STRS on behalf of about $750,000. Just as a refresher for the board, the state does a very interesting thing. They give us money that to contribute and put into our teachers' pensions to the tune of about $8 million. Every year we have to project what that amount happens to be. We were a little low on our projection this year, and so there is an increase on that. That really does nothing really to our revenue and expenditures, because whatever they give us, we pay them back. It is done partially so the liability shows on our books, so we know what the long-term liability for pensions are for our teachers. When it comes to expenditures, we can see some noted decreases in certificated and classified staff. Part of that is due to not having that many subs this year. Part of that is to positions that we have not been able to fill. We do see a slight benefits increase there. Part of that does go to health and welfare. Part of that goes to other areas that we have increased on some of the stipends, et cetera, that might impact the benefits we have to pay. Books and supplies, there's an increase. Largely that is due to COVID, the COVID fundings that we have received. And we do see an overall decrease in our operating expenditures. A lot of that happens to be contracts that we did have encumbered, but we're able to release at this point in time. There are a number of things, services that we provide that due to this year, largely because of schools not being in session, we aren't utilizing. So we were able to end those contracts and unencumber them to project those savings already. Now, this may have an impact at the end of the year. Typically, a lot of those contracts are held to the end of the year, and we see a big drop or a big drop in our expenditures, which increases our ending fund balance on our unaudited actuals. And doing this at second interim may have an impact that we don't have as much of that as we do in a typical year. When we look at our fund balance, we do see an overall increase. We had projected at the beginning of the year when we did our proposed budget. The board members may remember, as we looked at our multi-year projection, that we were having to really start having some discussions around what might be the cuts in the out years to make our budgets work. We did have that increase at first interim for our ending balance, largely due to increases in the COVID funding that was provided by the federal government as well as the state. And then even now we do see another increase of about $2.5 million to our ending balance for this year. For the next slide, it's always really good to take a look as well what makes up that ending fund balance or in that increase in that ending fund balance. If you take a look, you can see number one, the restricted line that is here. That's very important because you see the increase there. That increase currently is the amount of COVID funds we anticipate to still have at the end of the year, but that's only from the first round of funding we received. Later on, we're going to show you how much more funding we're anticipating on receiving after a couple of relief packages have gone through, especially at the federal level. On our other assigned, you'll notice that does increase. Part of that has to do with we didn't do our textbook adoptions as we anticipated, but we'll describe that in a minute here. We have our 4% reserve in there, the 3% being required. And then on the undesignated line, we see that $2.5 million increase that we can see in our ending fund balance. Always good to look at the assigned funds, what makes that up. You'll notice that basically there are two major areas, one-time discretionary of $7.8 million. We did not utilize those funds as much as we had in the past. A lot of that funding goes to professional development for our teachers. Some of that goes to different needed projects, helping out with different programs on school sites to get them up and running. Obviously, those things did not occur in the same way that they would in a typical school year. Our instructional supplies funds, sitting there as textbook lottery or supply fund lottery, has increased to $8.9 million. We hold a lot of money there because we are looking at textbook adoptions in the near future that we need to be prepared and ready for. On the restricted ending fund balance side, we are showing what comprises that, the top two being funding that we received for COVID, the ESSER funds, the emergency relief. That's the ESSER 1. We're going to talk a little bit about we have ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding on our way to us. We only received about 1.3 million is what we received in the very first package. The GEAR, which is the government emergency education relief fund of $1 million. You You also see that we do have some textbook funding in there and some down below here, we have almost $200,000 that was slated from the state for PPE. Now, people may ask, why have you not spent those funds yet? Because PPE was necessary. A lot of the other funding that came our way allowed for us to buy PPE for our classrooms, for our staff, et cetera. And they have a life that ends a lot faster. As a matter of fact, we did have funding that we had to spend by December 30th that has already been spent. Those funds for COVID, SB 117 do not have an ending date. So we hold on to that until we have utilized all the other funding sources that we have to utilize. It's kind of the idea is use up the money you have to use first due to a deadline before you go into funds that have a longer life. We talked at the first interim to the board and also recently about the cash flow and how there were issues related to cash flow and the possibility of needing to take out a TRAN or a loan to make it through our cash flow. Due to some of the projections that the state has provided, we did not end up needing to do that. We had grown at the presentation, I believe we were somewhere around $2 million. Last time we looked at it and we said we didn't need to do the TRAN. We're in the neighborhood of $8-9 million. We figured we could make it through. At this point in time, partially due to reduced expenditures, partly due to projections on what we're receiving, that's raised up to $14.6 million. So we're happy to report, as the board knows, we did not take out the TRAN, so we do not have to pay the interest as well as the fees on that in order for us to have our cash flow in order to meet our expenditures and our obligations moving from June into July. So that's a very positive thing. Now to the multi-year projection is where we have to go in order to take a look at getting a positive certification. If you note here, looking out into the out years, we are seeing our beginning balance actually increasing. We do fairly well this year as well in the next year. But as you start seeing into the following years, you will see that we build into next year and then we start going more into a deficit spending mode in 2022, 2023. And that's something that we have to be aware of as we move forward, but much, much better than we had anticipated when we were looking at first interim. Some very positive signs. We'll talk in just a slide here as to why that has occurred, and it's right there. Our governor's January proposal, if we go back to what our cost of living adjustment was supposed to be when we looked at our proposed budget, we weren't going to receive any at all. The governor's January proposal gives us a 2.31% COLA for 2020, 2021. But the trick behind that is they're not going to give it to us this year. They're going to wait until next year to give it to us. And the next year, they're proposing that we get a 1.5% COLA. And so next year, we will receive a 3.84% COLA. For anybody out there doing their math, they realize that 2.31% plus 1.5% does not equal 3.84, but you have to add the COLA of 1.5% onto the 2.31% you already received. So don't think our math is off on that one. People often look at it that way. And then once again, we had our COLA flat for 3 years at 0, 0, and 0 as we went out for our proposed budget. The predicted COLA by school services in California is 1.28%. At the state level, they're projecting it to be higher than that, but we tend to try to go with a conservative approach to that as we project the out years. So how does that change our projected revenue? This year, it does nothing to our projected revenue from first interim to second interim. In 2021, 2022, though, it increases it by about 5.8 million. In 2022-23, about 9.6 million. So over the course of the 2 out years, the next 2 years, it's about $15.4 million in additional revenue that we didn't anticipate when we were looking at the proposed budget earlier this year. So once again, very positive news. A couple other things that are going on is next year we will show a 0 ADA of declining enrollment, but that's due to a hold harmless. That does not mean we had no student decline this year, as the state is going to allow us to keep our old numbers or the numbers from the previous year. But what that does do when we get to 2022, 2023, is it creates a significant decline. We call it the cliff because you're getting a 2-year hit in one. Unless there's some legislation that creates some relief on that, then then it kind of is going to make some issues there. Class size sitting at 24:1 except for in K-3, 22:1 at our Title I schools. Our 9 through 12, actually our 7 through 12 is 180 student contacts. To note, we have a 22 teacher reduction moving into next year. You have to note though that 10 of those are from our low performing student block grant. So those were categorically funded and were slated to go away anyway. 12 teacher reduction, that has to do with declining enrollment, but it's good to know that that was not done through reduction in force. It'll be taken care of due to retirements and resignations. We're still projecting that for 2022, 2023. Looking at our pension contributions, we go over this every single year. The nice thing is we did get some relief when it comes to the state teacher retirement system, although we do see an increase of about 1% over the next 3 years. PERS, although we got relief, was not as significant. We see a 7% increase over the next 3 years. A particular note is we are moving over 20% that we take every single month of a classified employee who is receiving PERS and putting that towards their pension, projected in 2022, 2023 to be up actually at 26%. Just of note, what are the COVID funds we have received? This first page goes over all those things. To note specifically is the 7.1 million. We were slated to spend that or needed to spend that by the end of December 2020. At the last minute on 12/22, the federal government made some changes to that, saying you could spend it to 12/30/2021. The state still says we need to spend it by May, but we have spent those funds because we were not going to wait till December 22nd to find out we could hold on to it for 8 more days. Otherwise, most of those funds do still exist. We are actually working now through our state learning loss mitigation funds of $1.26 million for COVID funding at this point in time. The other things that have happened though is these are all the things that are occurring in reopening schools. We're slated to receive about $4.8 million in the in-person instruction grant. There's an expanded learning opportunity grant from the state, which is going to bring us $10.3 million. And then at the federal level, the ESSER II, which was announced in December, brings an additional $6 million, and out of the American Rescue Plan Act that was just approved in Congress, another $13.4 million for the ESSER III. And you notice every time we do get a new one of those funds, the date for spending them does get moved back. So the ESSER II is by the September of 2023. The ESSER III is by September of 2024. Now, each of these funds do come to us, but there are very strict stipulations as how to spend them. It's not for us to freely spend. Every single one of those categories has a long list of what we are capable of using them for. So just kind of before we go into some of the assumptions we're going to make or future considerations, this really is just to give us the current state, what the budget is for this year, but the work really begins now in looking at the 2021-2022 budget and how that's going to affect the out years and the multi-year. So the proposed budget's on its way. Always our goal of having our ongoing expenditures meet our ongoing revenue. One of the challenges we're going to have this year is this is a year of budgeting that is like no other just because of COVID, because of the infusing of one-time funds to a large amount that we just saw. We know that, and we don't know what enrollment's going to do to us in the future. We can follow a trend, but this whole situation is made so the trend is something we don't even know what's going to happen. Are students going to return? Are we going to see a large group of kindergartners next year? So we need to wait till next year to really see the impact of that. But I'm happy to announce, after all that, going through all those little details, we do a positive certification because we have an ending fund balance that's not negative. And we feel that some of the things that have come out of the governor's January proposal really give us some strong signs for the future, although there's a lot of questions out there still and we don't know exactly what the future holds. We'll hopefully have more information as we look at our proposed budget, which will come to the board in June. So that concludes my presentation, and I will now exit my share.
Thank you, Mr. Toto. And this would be a great time for me to recognize you and your department. I think that I know that Trustee Blau and Trustee Bagdasarian had a finance committee meeting with you recently. And I just want to say for the community members that may watch this later, Simi Valley USD is probably one of the more fiscally sound districts in the county right now. And I really appreciate Mr. Choto's knowledge and work in this area. And I know that they're not always the same excitement to hear about all the numbers, but it's because he does care so much about them that our district is in such a good financial position.
Yeah, and a true shout out really to the fiscal services team. So we have Carol Lovejoy and Shelley Barta over there who really are digging in and working with the numbers on a daily basis. And so without their support, I would not be able to present information as clearly as I am able to.
All right, thank you. I have a special place in my heart for accountants at Simi Valley Unified.
That's right.
Thank you to everybody behind the scenes.
Yeah.
A lot of work. So we're looking for a motion here. Unless there's any discussion.
I just want to add, thank you to Ron and the team. I've been on fiscal for, the whole time I've been here. So it's nice to be able to pass certified budgets. I know we've done that every year since I've been here. And I know that Ron and everybody has really worked hard. I didn't, last year, kind of when we had the May situation, I wasn't totally positive on where we would be because of so many different changes. And I did want to take a chance to thank them for their hard work during this last year, and also our associations for their willingness to, I think, work together on everything that's reflective in this budget. I think they've participated in a very positive manner with everybody across the table to make sure that we're still fiscally sound through all these challenges. So that's all I just want to add. And I think Dr. Poplinski said it best, and Ron as well. So thank you, fiscal team. And I'm very happy with and pleased with what we have.
I'll second that.
Was that a Blau LaBelle first and second?
That was a really long motion, apparently. Yes, I move.
And a quick second.
Trustee LaBelle,
Aye.
Trustee Bagdasarian,
Aye.
Trustee Smolin,
Aye.
Clerk of the Board Blau,
I just want to no.
Real quick.
A quick question.
Making a t-shirt.
All right, moving on to the information calendar. There's quite a number of these. So board administration, 1.1 first reading, deletion of board policy 1412 recreation. 1.2 first reading of deletion of board policy 1120 governing board meetings. Personnel services, items 2.1 through 2.5. 2.6 Simi Educators Association District Contract Reopeners for 2021-2022. And then item 2.7, deletion of board policy on health and examinations. Moving on to 3, educational services. Items 3.1 through 3.5, first readings. Item 4.1 on student support services. First reading a new board policy in association to head lice. Business and facilities. Item 5.1, Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, CBOC Annual Report for fiscal year 2020. 5.2, information regarding bond project prioritization plan A. 5.3, first reading of updated board policy 3280, sale or lease of district-owned real property. Consideration and discussion of proposed items for future meetings. Item 1.1, legislative update. Clerk of the Board Blau.
I don't have everything. I did see that today in the State Assembly, they're working on maybe revamping the CTE money. And I think college and career funds would be another fantastic additive. So Dr. Poplinski, if you'd like to add, that was one thing I did see over the last week. Of course, we've had reopening and all those other good discussions going on.
Yeah, I believe there are 3 CTE bills that are on the floor right now in conversation debate. But yeah, all of that, as all of you know, that money has shifted around from different fiduciary groups. So we'll see what ultimately comes from this legislative cycle. And the only other one I wanted to draw attention to is there is Ting or Tang, I can't remember. It's a bill that will not make distance learning an option for reversible ADA next year. So we're not exactly sure what kind of momentum that gets, but we've all had the discussion about needing clarity on, are districts required to offer distance learning next year? Is it an option? Can you get reimbursed ADA for it? That answer is not clear at this point. But that one bill that was introduced would basically say that you could not be reimbursed for distance learning next fall. So we'll see if that gets momentum. Don't know what the appetite is for that, but we're all obviously still waiting on that guidance. They are barely ahead of us. So anything about next fall is still, I'm sure, a month or 2 off. And a lot of it's probably going to be in the budget cycle, so we may not even know till June.
All right, thank you for the update. Looks like that's a good one to keep on there. Item 1.2, coronavirus information, emergency preparedness. Trustee Smolin.
Obviously as our secondaries open up, if there's anything that changes, I think it's a good thing to just keep on there for the current time. I look forward to when we can take it off.
And Trustee Small, I just wanted to add there that we are getting obviously questions about how parents can help us. One of the things that we want parents to know is that the spacing requirement is really the challenge inside classrooms right now in order to being able to have normal full days. So just so the community knows and that our board knows, is that is the next big piece of advocacy work that AXA, for example, is doing, as well as CSBA, to work with state and national health officials in order to reduce the 6-foot spacing requirement. You've heard the CDC level, the language says to the extent possible. There was some discussion from the CDC director, I believe yesterday or the day before on weekend news, talking about 3-foot spacing, which is essentially our normal spacing, which would allow us to do normal classes in the fall. So that is the real hiccup. And when parents want to know, why can't we do full day? Why can't we have full classes all day? That is why, because there is still a spacing requirement. It is not a decision that we've made. It's a spacing requirement that we have to hold to at this point. And until that piece of legislation is sent to us or that guidance changes, we're still bound to do that. And a lot of parents ask me, well, why is this private school? And I don't know. All I can tell you is that, our district is a public agency where we have to follow the public guidance. If other people are not or are, I don't know, but that's not really our concern. We have to do what we know is the right and prudent thing to do. So if parents want to help, that is the piece that, any kind of advocacy, towards CDC and CDPH, giving them, that kind of information is helpful to all of us. And we do see some progress. So we do think ultimately we're going to see movement on this. I think the last big push obviously was just about getting schools, secondary schools open in this red tier situation. So I think now the transition will move to what does fall look like. So we hope to have more information about that. The other thing too is, there have been questions about summer school. We are offering summer school, and both of the middle, all elementary, middle, and high school will have opportunities for summer school. And with some of our resources that we're getting for extended learning time, Mrs. Ellis and Mr. Block are both currently working on what does, the start of school look like? Do we bring kids back early? Do we have jumpstart programs? All of those things are all being discussed right now. So there'll be a lot of options for parents and for students. And obviously we want those to be done in person so that it's most effective. And then the last little bit of information on that item that we just need to share is we finally got today some good news that wood-wind instruments can now be played on our campuses. So that's really exciting news. And it makes perfectly good sense that we can do that as safely as other things that are now allowed on campus. So good news for our instrumental music families. They do have, still have to have bell covers, and there's some criteria, and there has to be spacing. It still has to be outdoors, but they can actually have audiences as long as the audience is 20 feet away from the instruments. So really good news on that front. And we were happy to share that information with our secondary schools today. So that's really good news.
Thank you for that update. I'm excited for them.
Yeah, me too. I miss them. I miss the
Yeah.
arts.
Okay, item 1.3, progress on equity and inclusion efforts. Do you have any update there?
Yep, we have currently flown our coordinator position, which will be tackling diversity, inclusion, equity, and civics engagement. And that is out right now. Applications are all due after spring break, and then we look forward to a really good set of applicants to interview and bring a name to the board in April.
Okay, look forward to that. 1.4, update on AP classes. Trustee Smallman.
Yeah, I was going to, like I mentioned last meeting, I wanted to leave that on there until the course of the year is done, just to have some comparison and have it open for discussion when we get the scores back from the students that have taken the tests and the support systems that we have put in place for them.
Right. Any new proposed items for future meetings?
Yes, I would like to suggest a future agenda item where we can discuss potentially hiring more mental health counselors, in particular school social workers.
Thank you, Trustee Bagdasarian. We've already had a conversation about this. So what I want you guys to know, we can't discuss it tonight, but we're going to put it on the agenda. And what Mr. Goldman will be bringing to you all is a job description for that, and what the potential supervisory capacity of someone like that overseeing interns that would, kind of multiply our ability to have more mental health counseling going on at all of our levels. So we're excited about that. And Mr. Goldman will bring that back in April. And we can have it on the agenda to discuss, and he can share the background work that we did on the topic.
Just want to add, I had a wonderful conversation with Trustee Bagdasarian, and I thank her for bringing this forward. I know we've talked about mental health counselors quite a bit. We've added some, that this seems like another approach, and I was very happy to have that discussion. So thank you so much for bringing this to our attention.
You're welcome.
It's really nice when your expertise and your passions find their way into work that you can bring to the board. So it's great. So yeah, we'll bring that back in April, and you guys can have a healthy conversation about it. And Mr. Goldman will be able to provide kind of the background of what we see happening. So.
Thank
All
you.
right. Look forward to it. Any other items? We'll move on to announcements.
President Jabon, before you give the last announcement for the board meeting, I would just like to publicly support and publicly embarrass Mrs. Snodgrass. This is the last meeting that she will be Mrs. She's defending her doctoral dissertation next week. So next week. So good luck to her. We look forward to putting the little DR in front of her name. And I know that you'll make everybody proud. I'm serving on her actual dissertation committee, so I know she's going to be great.
Thank you. That was, yes, very embarrassing.
So.
And if you don't like that public acknowledgement, but I appreciate it.
of luck there. All right, announcements, April 20th, 2021, 5 PM, regular board meeting, district office, 101 West Cochran Street, via Zoom. And we'll move on. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody, for another great meeting, and enjoy the rest of your week. We will